Yeah, touched a nerve, I think, clearly is what I would say on that one. But yeah.
Yeah, okay, I can see the vein popping right now, mate.
Okay, Jack, onto the back row now. This is going to be, I feel, the most hotly contested position group just because of the absolute world-class talent that is knocking about. We said you could do a top 20 for the locks, you could do a top 50 for the back rows quite easily. So, starting off, you can't look further than the World Player of the Year, two-time World Player of the Year, in fact, Peter Steph Toy. Albeit, I do think there was that argument of if we did a utility forwards position group, Peter Steph would slot in there, given his ability to play in the lock position too. So, any arguments on that one?
No. I mean, I don't think I need to add anything else. He's been absolutely phenomenal for years and years and years. And every year he just seems to step up that little bit more. He gets through such a high work rate. His tackle count is off the chart. And even listen, even with ball in hand, he is a nightmare to take down. So yeah, PSTD straight in.
Yeah, no doubt. And he's got an interesting fact, a bit of his old man's hamstring in his leg from a surgery, which is very interesting. So, yes, very interesting. So, yeah, no, straight in, no arguments there. So, who have you got as your next choice in the back row?
I am going to go for a breakthrough, the men's breakthrough player of the year, Willis Sititi. Obviously, hasn't got tons and tons of experience, but you saw what he did in that Automation series, and what he's been doing for club over the past year or two. He's just been absolutely phenomenal, and he is going to be a real genuine star of world rugby going forward. This is a name that we're going to be talking about for years to come. He's terrific with ball in hand, ruthless in the tackle area, by the way, terrific in the breakdown. Yeah, Wallace TT, he goes straight in for me.
Yeah, interesting one. I didn't have him on my list just because it was sort of the first season. But again, if we're going just purely on this year, he's been phenomenal. What a find. And obviously, Scott Robertson got a bit of flack for picking him ahead of Hoskins Sotutu early in the season. But look, he's been fully justified. Sititi is just incredible. So, yeah, don't feel strong enough to veto that. I mean, the guy's brilliant. The big thing is, as ever with these breakthrough players, how is he going to be next season when the international teams have a bit more film on him and a bit more of an idea? So, from what we can see, I think he's going to be world class, like you said, going forward, and very timely for them too as they're rebuilding towards the World Cup. So, yeah, what a player. Next up for me is Caelan Doris, who I think is probably the Lions captain in waiting, given his familiarity with Andy Farrell, and the fact that he's the Ireland captain. And people might disagree, but I think he's the best number 8 in the world, and I don't know if it's necessarily that close. I think Wallace Sititi in years to come, when he gets more time sitting in at number 8, and obviously Ardie Savea are brilliant, but I think Savea is a 7 in my opinion. But yeah, for me, Kevin Doris right in there. And yeah, how do you feel about that one?
I wouldn't have had him in there, if I'm honest. I think he's a terrific player. He's a great leader, obviously. Leinster captain as well. Um, the problem is Ireland, and I hate to repeat this, haven't won a World Cup. They're not on the best form of their life at the moment. Leinster struggling the big occasions, and I think as a leader, it's your job to get your team or help your team over the line. So I think, although you can't deny he's an incredible leader, there are certain parts to his game that are perhaps missing. Now, of course, you can't blame an entire team's misfortune on one player, but it's one of those things. How can you claim a player to be the best player ever, for example, if they haven't won a World Cup? If you think football in terms,
I know where this is going.
Lionel Messi, Cristiano Ronaldo, you can't call Ronaldo the greatest player ever if he's not won a World Cup. And I think the same thing comes in here. Now, I'm not going to veto it because, listen, I think he's an incredible player. And I've had the fortune to interview him at the press conferences a couple of times, and he's very well spoken. He's a clear leader. But I just feel for him to be revered as the best in the world, his teams need to start winning things.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that though, because like people, I think this is kind of getting a little bit blown out of proportion with Ireland. I mean, they've won a Grand Slam followed by another Six Nations back to back the last 2 years, three finals with the Champions Cup, which, if I'm being brutally honest, came down to coaching mishaps and a 10 who wasn't dynamic enough in Ross Byrne for Leinster to win any of those. Whereas I think Doris is just, even when Ireland aren't doing that well, he's their go-to. Now, I agree with you on certain fronts, like the World Cup quarterfinal, the All Blacks just shut him down, and that killed a lot of Ireland's go forward ball. But for me, he's just got such good footwork before contact and is so powerful in contact. So yeah, I think this is funny because it's one of the probably the rare position groups where we probably completely disagree on that. I think for me, he's the best number 8 in the world. And yeah, so interesting. But I take your point too, yeah, touched a nerve, I think clearly is what I would say on that one. But yeah.
Yeah, okay, I can see the vein popping right now, mate.
Very good, very good. Right. Jack, your backup. Who you got next?
Well, I can't put him in. I'd like to give a an honorary shout out to Benno, because I think he's been one of England's best players for the past couple of years. He was overlooked for years under the Eddie Jones era, but certainly under Borthwick, he's taken the ball by the horns and he has shown why he is one of the best back row players. And I say back row rather than number 8 because, of course, he is traditionally a flanker. I think he's one of the best in the world, but I cannot put him in over Ardie Savea. You cannot have a top 10, top 5 list without Ardie Savea. I mean, he's one World Player of the Year. He is just every time he gets the ball, he's knocking people over. He's making yards. His post contact meters are just insane. And what he brings to a team in terms of leadership as well is phenomenal. There's a reason that he is regarded as one of the best players in the world. So to have a top 5 back row player list without him in it would just be criminal.
Yeah, no, you can't. We just couldn't do this list without Ardie Savea. So fully agree on that.
So
Yeah.
who's going to be your final one? Who can I
Yeah,
veto?
I was really tempted to go with Josh van der Flier just because he's consistently brilliant, but I probably won't. I had so many other options on this, which is quite tricky. But I'm actually going to go with Jack Willis at Toulouse. I think he is the lost great hope for English rugby, and I think it's ludicrous that he is not available for selection when you take into account the circumstances that led to him ending up in France. So for me, even though he's not in the test arena, I think he'll be a Lion this year, next season. Obviously, when we get to Australia, I think he'll be a Lion, and I think it is very short-sighted that the RFU have not made an exemption to get him in, because in my opinion, he is far and away the best English back row, and that's saying something given the talent coming through with the likes of Chandler Cunningham South. You've obviously got the Curry brothers, you've got Ben Earl, you touched on, you've got Sam Underhill, you've just got talent everywhere. But for me, Willis is just a step ahead. In fact, even his brother Tom Willis is fantastic. So, any arguments there out of that?
Yeah, I've got plenty, but I'll allow you to keep that one in because you feel so strong about it. Um, Obviously, you said he's by far and away the best England back row. I don't even see him getting in the England back row.
Interesting.
Not even slightly. I perhaps on the bench. Um, I mean, he's for me. Sam Underhill brings a lot more to the game with his defensive displays.
Hold
Uh,
on, Mr. Bath fan, for 1 second here. Is that where we're going with? No, I'm just yeah, carry on.
well, Chandler Cunningham South. He's a bigger unit. He's more threatening. I've said what I've said about Ben Earl.
Hmm.
And of course, you've got Tom Curry, sort of the golden boy of English rugby. Willis is an incredible player, and his breakdown abilities are just next level. But I don't see him getting in that England squad, even if he was living in England.
Yeah, tricky. I mean, for me, he was the most influential player in last year's Champions Cup final. I mean, he
Oh
you
yeah,
know,
he's
just
phenomenal.
killed Leinster, stopped them dead. And let's be real, as much as it hurts to say as a Munster fan, that's pretty close to stopping the Ireland team, who went on to win the Six Nations, were you know flying form at that point. So I personally I just rate him so highly. When you look at even just looking at the stats of what he does week in, week out in the top 14, the Champions Cup, I just think he's such a lost to English rugby. But interesting that you as an English fan don't necessarily feel the same way. So maybe I'm in the minority on that
I,
one.
I feel like I'm in the minority. I think a lot of the English fans would suggest that he should be in the England squad, or certainly be eligible for it. Thing for England to have him back in the squad and back available for England. But whether he get in that starting team or not is debatable for me. But I think we'd leave that one up to Steve Borthwick there, wouldn't we?
Sounds good, mate. Sounds good. Okay, so let's rank them then. We'll go 5 to 1. So let's go Willis at 5, just based on the fact that he's out of the test arena, even though I think he's phenomenal.
Mate, you just gave me a 10-minute monologue on why Willis is the greatest thing since sliced bacon, and now you're sticking him at
Okay,
five.
all right, all right, all right. Okay, I'm this easily swayed. Let's go with this. Right, Sititi 5, Willis 4. We'll go Savea 3, Doris 2, and Dutoit 1 for me.
Yes, 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 yes. I mean, I can't disagree with that. I can actually.
I know where you're going to disagree.
Doris over Savea?
Yeah, I think so. Based on 2024, I think if you go back, Sevilla was amazing at the World Cup. I just think he's no, look, he's at such a high level that's very hard to say, but I don't think he was the best Sevilla we've seen this year.
Yeah. All right. I'll allow
Cool. All right. Sweet.
it.
Thanks for allowing it, mate. So, very good. Cool. So that concludes our back row top 5.